So as we were suggesting, that descended shows that it has two levels or two floors, and it shows that no one is there. Maybe they are sleeping, maybe not. Now, no hit from the leaf fringed sill. What is the leaf fringed sill? Leaf, you know leaf? Leaf is a leaf, one leaf of the plant. Fringed sill. Fringed means covered. Sill, as it's mentioned down in the glossary, if you check the glossary, window sill. Now, to better assist you here, I would show you what does this look like. This is a leaf fringed sill. It's a window that is mostly covered with leaves. Like this, it looks like that. So a leaf fringed sill, it's a window that is covered with leaves everywhere. Now, in what occasion would this happen? In what occasion would something like this happen normally? What do you think? In what occasion would something like this happen? That you have a window with that shape? I guess it's very clear to us, you know. Yeah, okay, some of your friends might suggest in autumn that it looks like that, but no, in autumn actually all leaves fall down. But that happens in two things: that this place has thick trees and planting, it's full of plants, and that happens actually in a forest or jungle. That is image number one. Image number two, if that happens at your house, would you allow plants to cover entirely the home like that? I guess no. So that means this place is abandoned, neglected, isolated. No one is living there. And that shows the idea of no one descended. Now we understand they are not sleeping. They are not actually available. And how they are not available, you wouldn't leave your house covered with plants like that. They will be full of insects everywhere, bugs and whatever that's going to cover your place. So usually, even if you need to frame your window with some plantings, you would frame them, shape them well. But the idea here, a leaf fringed sill, it's a sill that is completely covered. So the place is not inhabited. No one is living there. So no one leaned over and looked into his gray eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. Now, where he stood perplexed, who stood perplexed? Who stood perplexed? Who? The traveler. Okay, the traveler. Now, we will move down to the next four lines. I would appreciate if you have also time to think of it clearly, or like in 1 minute, think deeply about it. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men. Same rhyming scheme, A, B, C, B, no change, but only a host of phantom listeners. He kept waiting for someone, but only a host of phantom listeners. Who's listening now? Phantoms. Phantoms are the only one who listens. Now their traveler went to the idea of having ghosts. And a phantom is a ghost inside the house. That dwelt. Dwelt means that lived. Lived where? In the lone house then. That dwelt in the lone house then. So dwelt, as we said again, means lived. In the lone. Lone is a word that means single or lonely. So the house is lonely and alone. His owners lived it long time ago. Who's the host right now? Who's in right now? Phantoms. And they are listening carefully. That dwelt in the lone house then. Stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight. Stood listening. So the traveler thinks that they are standing and they listen in the quiet of the moonlight. In the quiet of the moonlight. Now, here there is a very nice image. I really need someone who is a deep thinker to think of it. In the quiet of the moonlight, quiet of the moonlight, there is something here. Actually, there are two things, two figurative things, two figurative devices and sounds. So just to revise again with you now, stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight, quiet and light, there is rhyming in the line. So we have rhyming in one line, in the same line. Quiet of the moonlight now is having a quality of a human being. So that is personification. To that voice from the world of men. To that voice from the world of men. When I have the world of men, that confirms the idea, the world of men, it confirms the idea that inside the house, they have their own world, which is the world of ghosts. Now, think of the coming four lines. You have another 1 minute to think. Stood thronging the faint moonbeams in the dark or on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveler's call. Yeah, that is a really nice line. Now, please, let's go again by the rhyming scheme. It is the same. Stair hall, shaking call. A, B, C, B. Stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair. What is the meaning of thronging? Thronging. So as we understand here, stood thronging, thronging is a word or a verb that means available or present, but in a large number. In a large number. Okay? So what is available? The moonbeams, reflecting on what? The dark stair. Where is the dark stair going to and from? It's going down to the empty hall. So even the hall is empty, has nothing. Hearkening in an air stirred and shaken. Hearkening in an air stirred and shaken. Hearkening in an air means trying to move and being shaked. The air of the moonbeams. How? By the lonely traveler's call. So in other words here, the image controlling that nothing is bothered except by the voice of the traveler. Nature is peaceful. Even ghosts and phantoms are okay. Even birds were available in the turret. However, the phantoms were available. So even birds were not bothered with the phantoms. The only thing that made them bothered was the traveler, human beings themselves. Moving forward, and he felt in his heart their strangeness. He felt, he here is the traveler, and he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry. Their stillness, it means they kept not answering his cries. While his horse moved, cropping the dark turf, cropping the dark turf. His horse kept cropping. Cropping means cutting, damaging, eating the dark turf, which is the grass, neath the starred and leafy sky. Under the starred and leafy sky. Leafy sky means it's dense. Dense. It's like the roof, like you can't see the sky clearly because of lots of trees available, but you can see glimpse of the stars. If you watch and think deeply of this poem, all the images covered here are covered with the idea of nature controlling. The nature is the one dominating the ideas. And actually, the only one who's bothering them is the human being. I really go with the idea that the poem here is only supporting the idea that human beings are the ones who are damaging nature. That everything here is just moving due to the voice of the traveler. For he suddenly smote on the door. Smote again, as we explained. Prepare these 4 lines. Read them again, please. Now, this time, These four lines are somehow different. We started now to understand why is the traveler here. It was really anonymous and strange how the traveler was moving at that time with a horse into this thick and deep forest. Look, for he suddenly smote on the door even. Again, he smote, he knocked, louder, and lifted his head. Lifted his head means like raised his head up. Tell them I came, and no one answered. That I kept my word, he said. So this tells you what? This tells you what? By the way, the rhyming scheme here is the same. A, B, C, B. Head and said. But my concern is what? What does these four lines tell you? Does it mean that there was an appointment with him? Does it mean that he was waiting for someone or someone was waiting for him? So does it mean that this place was really inhabited by people who lived in, but when he came, he found no one? Many questions are open to the reader, but most of them answers with, no one is living there now. Maybe earlier there were some people living in, but now no one. Nevertheless, stir made the listeners. Nevertheless, any action the listeners made, though every word he spoke, however he said and uttered a lot of things, fell echoing through the shadowness of the still house, only echoing through the shadow of the still house, from the one man left awake. So only the one man left awake, which is the traveler, he was the only awakened person in the whole area. The echo that was happening here was because of him. So he was the only one who's making noise, and he was the only one who's speaking, no one to reply. They heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone. Here's the end. Now, this poem is really full of images. He promised someone to come. Maybe he was late to that person. Maybe he was late to that person, but that person died. Maybe he suggested a meeting with someone here, but they didn't meet and come. Lots of questions need an answer. That needs more analysis. Now, don't think for a moment that this poem is just done by the analysis. We didn't finish analyzing the poem, actually. We need to work on it more and more to find the figurative images and figurative language used here when it comes to sound devices, alliteration and rhyming and onomatopoeia. Also, to discuss the vivid words, similes and metaphors and everything. This has to be done as homework. That would be mentioned on the LMS. I'll mention all the information to you. So for today, our session is done when it comes to reading the poem and simple analyzing. Further homework is going to be on LMS. You can check it after the session. Thank you for your active listening for the explanation.